Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our monthly CEU webinar entitled Take a Stand for Caregivers. I'm Robin James, and I serve as the Director of Marketing and Innovations for Middle Alabama Area Agency on Aging, better known as M4A. And this morning, we're going to cover how to be elder justice strong and really how to bridge the gap that exists. And with me, is also my co-presenter is Mr. Steve Searcy, and I will properly introduce him later in the presentation, but he is our M4A Elder Justice Consultant. And I do want to thank Carlette Smith, who's offering our CEUs this morning. And there is her email address and her website. And so thank you, Ms. Smith, for being such a great partner with your company to offer these CEUs on a monthly basis. I also wanted to introduce Jennifer Fuller. She does a lot of technical support for these behind the scenes, and she is the project director of our PANDA project, which stands for Providing Alzheimer's and Dementia Assistance. So thank you, Jennifer, for your continued support as well. For this particular CEU webinar, we need everybody to take just a quick pre-test and then at the end to take a post-test. So I believe Jennifer will be putting this SurveyMonkey link into the chat box. And so we'll give you all just about 2 or 3 minutes to go ahead and take that pre-test. And it's really so that we can measure the effectiveness of this particular topic information, but also just so we can improve it over time. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started up again. Just as a reminder, we are one of 13 local area agencies on aging. We also love acronyms, so we're AAAs. So any county in the country is represented by a local area agency on aging. And so a lot of the programs I'm going to go over briefly, anywhere in the country, as long as it's under an area agency on aging who receives Older American Act funding, they also have these core programs and services. So most of you are very familiar with the Meals on Wheels program, but it's actually called, there is a Meals on Wheels, but ours is called the Elderly Nutrition Program. So we do provide meals in the senior center and then also for the homebound clients that we serve across our 5-county area, which is Blount, Chilton, Shelby, St. Clair, and Walker counties. And so as you can just see by this design, we've got a lot of home community-based services, which is our largest program, which is our Medicaid waiver program. And that really keeps individuals of all ages in the home. And we bring all those support services into their home. And so our youngest client is 9 months old with autism. And so although we do provide, most of our services are for older adults, we also serve people of any age with a disability, and we do a lot to serve caregivers. So we do Medicare, Medicaid insurance counseling. We have prescription assistance program, which is funded by the state legislatures, and it's known as Senior RX. We have a legal services program, which a lot of you have heard Jan Neal, who is our contractor. And so if you know somebody that's 60 and above that needs legal assistance, we can help with that. We have a senior employment program. It's the only one funded by the U.S. Department of Labor. And it's to serve people 55 and above and provide them training. And so we work with those host agencies and place the participant and get them trained for a couple years. And then a lot of them seek long-term employment after. So that's a really important program because a lot of people who participate in our CSEP is what it's known as, but the senior employment, they're widows, they're widowers, they're disabled. They just really want to offset their income. They're retired veterans. And so it really does bring new skills to them. So it's just a great program as well. So it's real easy to make a referral nowadays. You can always call our office. You can call one statewide number and it'll direct you to one of the 13 agencies automatically. And that's 1-800-AGE line. But for the purpose of M4A, you can just go to our website at m4a.org and you can just click either I get help or make a referral button. And that goes directly to our Aging and Disability Resource Center. So the Aging and Disability Resource Center screens consumers of all ages for all programs and benefits that they may be qualified to receive. So we help with SNAP applications, which is the food assistance program. We screen for veterans aid and attendance. They just ask them a series of questions, and it really makes sure that a consumer who needs help or services doesn't slip through the cracks. So an example of that is somebody may be calling, as a caregiver for their loved one that they're caring for, but come to find out the caregiver qualifies for our caregiver support program. That is the recipient of the care. And so, or maybe they need medication assistance. And so it really is a great business model that we screen people for everything that they may be eligible for. So we really encourage, we get a lot of referrals nowadays from our website. It just seems easier for a consumer to, just on their laptop or on their phone and just type in a little bit of information. And then, so we really encourage all of you professionals and you family caregivers on the webinar today to really use that feature. So each area agency in Alabama, we have set goals that are really set by the federal government who funds us under the Older Americans Act, and then our state office, which is the Alabama Department of Senior Services. One of those priority goals is to enable more Alabamians to live with dignity by promoting elder rights and reducing the incidence of abuse, neglect, and exploitation. So for the purpose of this webinar this morning, we're really going to go over the definitions. I will say I am not an expert with elder abuse. I have been a staunch advocate for elder rights for over 20 years. And so this just is really my passion to make sure that people can live with peace as they age in their community and actually be safe and unharmed. And so how we tackle this is we do a lot of elder abuse education. We have a long-term care ombudsman, Ryan Leonard, and what he does, his role is really to be the advocate for residents in a long-term care setting, which is a nursing home or an assisted living facility. And so not just for abuse, but for any kind of resident issue that's going on. And so he really serves as that advocate. And again, I talked about Jan Neal services, no cost legal services. We find a lot of families and older adults, they run into so many problems because they don't have their legal affairs in order. So that really is one great way to really curtail mistreatment or neglect or exploitation. And then we do a lot of fraud prevention. We have the Senior Medicare Patrol Program, which is federally funded. And so we just do a lot. We get a lot of reports of scams, and we have a lot of partnering agencies and regulators that we report things to. And then we provide a lot of caregiver support, direct support under our federally funded Alabama Cares support program. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that. But I have been a family caregiver on quite a few occasions, and I know how difficult it is to be a family caregiver. And we do want to say you are the difference. You really make the difference for your loved one, or if you're a professional caregiver and that is your passion, and so you provide care during daily. We really want to honor you all. And just know it ain't easy. We know that for a fact. So thank you so much for all that you do as a caregiver. We just love this Rosalind Carter quote, and I kind of showcase it whenever I have an opportunity to talk about elder justice. But there are 4 kinds of people in the world: those who are currently caregivers, those who have been a caregiver, those who will be a caregiver, and those who will need a caregiver. And so if you just reflect on that, it's so true that most caregivers, most family members, you don't plan to be a caregiver. You get the call one day. And that's what happened to me. My mother was my dad's caregiver. He had Parkinson's. He was diagnosed at 55 years old. Dementia set in. And my mom had a sudden heart attack at 61 as his caregiver. And we didn't even know Dad could answer the phone, but he picked up the phone and he said, "Rob, come quick, it's Mom." And so it just instantly, and there were 5 children, and we all did a really good job to provide dad with that care. But we didn't even consider mom back then, and this was in 2001, as a caregiver. So, that's mom taking care of dad, and that's what you do when you get married. You care for your spouse or a loved one. And so just remembering back then, so I know it rings true, and I know a lot of you on this webinar either have been a caregiver or, you are currently a caregiver. So when we talk about elder abuse, it breaks down to 5 categories. And I'm going to go over briefly each of these 5 categories to kind of some red flags. There's emotional abuse, there's financial exploitation, there's neglect, but there's also self-neglect. And self-neglect is a huge problem in Alabama, but really all across the country. There's physical abuse, and then there's sexual abuse. And so just to give you some stats, now these are outdated, but these are proven as factual. For every 1 case that comes to light of adult mistreatment, another 23 cases never come to light. So those of us in the elder justice field, we call it it's a hidden crime, and it rarely surfaces. But when it does, we really need to better respond and stop the abuse from happening. And I'm going to go over a little bit about the problem at this part, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the solution. So there was a study, and this was probably 8-9 years ago. In a study of 4,156 older adults, family members were the most common perpetrators of financial exploitation of those older adults, which is 57.9%, followed by friends and neighbors, 16.9%, and home care aides at 14.9%. Now, I will say, as a society, we really need to do a better job to get more data when it comes to adult mistreatment. We just are so far behind the 8 ball in our country and in our state, and even at the local level, to really identify the magnitude of the problem. I will say with COVID, there's been an increase in the number of domestic violence cases and adult mistreatment cases because of all the social isolation for the older adult, maybe the financial exploitation. So I will say that this is continuing to be a growing problem. So here are some more stats. The problem: 1 in every 10 people 60 and older who live at home has suffered some form of abuse, neglect, or exploitation. 1 in every 10 people. Half of the people with dementia have suffered from abuse or neglect by their caregivers. And again, I'm going to talk a little bit about the solution because caregivers need a lot of support. They need tools, training. We really, those who work in this field, we know a lot of it is not intentional. It's unintentional, but it does occur. Cognitive impairment reduces financial capacity, which increases the risk of financial exploitation. And this is just staggering that the mortality rate is 3 times higher for a victim of abuse, neglect, or exploitation. 3 times higher. So this is a real health crisis issue. It's a public safety issue, and it's just a horrific issue, really. About 2/3 of all elder abuse victims are women. And for every 1 case, as I mentioned previously, that comes to light, another 23 remain hidden. So just let that sink in a little bit, but 1 in every 10, and the mortality rate is horrible. So what are some of the red flags with the 5 categories? So psychological abuse, it could be unexplained changes in behavior. Let's just say your sister is caring for your parents, and your parents always took your phone calls, and now they're never coming to the phone. I'm sorry, dad's sleeping, mom doesn't feel good. So they're really isolating your loved ones, maybe punishing them to not have those connections with the other family members. Or the caregiver may be verbally aggressive or just really uncaring. So exploitation, giving the caregiver excessive financial gifts for care. Mom, you cared for your mother, or your brothers cared for your mother and did a good job. And, he would get some financial compensation, but now it's, now he's taking, $500 a week out of the bank, charging mom without anybody knowing about it. The caregiver may have full control of the finances, but fails to provide the needs. or the elder has signed property transfers, but because of maybe some cognitive impairment, is not able to comprehend what transactions took place, or doesn't remember, or was kind of coerced to sign those transfers. Neglect is some of the signs are a lack of basic hygiene, adequate food or clean clothing, a lack of medical aids. Maybe mom's frequent faller, but now mom doesn't have her walker, they pawned her walker or something like that. Leaving somebody with more advanced dementia unsupervised. The home may be cluttered, filthy. There might be a lot of fire and safety hazards, or again, fall hazards. A lot of rugs, a lot of stuff sitting around on the floors that causes mom to be more at risk of a fall. Or untreated pressure bed sores. Physical sexual abuse, maybe there's unexplained fractures, bruises, cuts, sores, burns, or torn undergarments. And there is it's called the Interagency Council for the Prevention of Elder Abuse. And Steve Searcy and myself, I served as the state liaison way back in 2011. We brought several of these agencies and organizations together to create one statewide body. And it really, they're very active today, and they're very instrumental to fight the good fight to protect elders. So one thing that the council did was had a brand new law back in 2003 called the Protecting Alabama Elders Act. And what it does is it creates additional criminal penalties. It does not change the current Adult Protective Services statute. The state DHR and our state Unit on Aging, ADSS, are the chair and co-chair. And this law actually applies to victims 60 years of age or older. So that was really new for our state to put an age. Now, I will say for Adult Protective Services statute, vulnerable adults are also protected under so that's why I said it didn't change the APS statute. So you don't have to be 60, but it's nice to have this age for this particular piece of legislation. And a prosecution can now be first, second, or third degree. And as you can see on the slide, Class A is the strongest. It could be 10 years to life. Class B, 2 to 20 years. Class C, felony, 1 to 10 years. Or a Class A, a misdemeanor, up to a year. So caregivers are really the cornerstone to keep elders safe in our communities. And so it's so important for caregivers to really take care of yourself and learn how to respond appropriately to those difficult behaviors. I will say our PANDA project and our Alabama Cares program have done a good job working with UAB, Dr. Rita Jablonski, to create new difficult behavior management videos that are available to caregivers. We also have a caregiver interventionist that can work one-on-one with those families. And we have, it's called True Alta, and there's more information on our website. And so we do have a lot of tools now available for caregivers to identify their stress triggers and really how to, we have support groups, we have virtual support groups. And so I would encourage you to go to our website or reach out to our agency. And if you are a caregiver, learn how to be the best caregiver that you can, but remembering that you need to provide care for yourself as well. We as an agency, we are more of the advocacy arm. We do not, we are mandated reporters, but we do not take reports. You would need to always report to the Alabama Department of Human Services Adult Abuse Hotline and the toll-free numbers up there. You can also go online and fill out a form on their website, or you can also make a report to your local law enforcement, and reports can always be made anonymously. So I've had quite a few calls recently, and people are just saying, can I report? I don't want to give my name, but I know there's something going on at my neighbor's house. So we connect them with DHR or their local law enforcement. And so their email address is real simple, and they have a county office in each of our 67 counties. And so we do work very closely with DHR on our elder justice initiatives. So I like this. I like the graphic of the tree, you know, one side's blooming and it's fully alive and the other side's dying. And I just wanted to share this with you and just to remember, it is not the load that breaks you down. It's the way you carry it. So as a caregiver or a professional, it's how we really carry the stress and the burdens and the challenges, quite frankly, that we all have. So I just wanted to share that with you. So I want to talk a little bit about the solution and that a lot of professionals in our region, really, we're kicking this off in Shelby County, but it will go statewide because we'll serve as a resource center. But M4A recently created its own For All Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And we've created 3 centers of excellence under the For All Foundation. It is a part of M4A. It really, For All just really expands the reach and the support and the services that we can provide people who typically won't qualify for one of our programs or services. And so we have the Center for Critical Needs, the Training for Aging Center, and then the Center for Elder Justice and Advocacy. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about that elder justice. So we really have been, and we've worked with Mr. Searcy, and we've worked with the national, state, and local experts on this because we are not. So we really needed to bring those partnerships to the forefront with us. And so what the Center for Elder Justice and Advocacy, we will serve as Alabama's resource center. We will provide victim and elder support services, professional and community training. We have started the Shelby County Elder Justice Alliance, and we are rolling out in 2022 our other 5 county-wide alliances. And we eventually will have a caregiver and adult respite program and a temporary emergency shelter specifically for older adults. It is non-existent in the state. I think in Muscle Shoals or Florence, there's one domestic violence shelter, and they have 3 beds for older adults. So your typical domestic violence shelter is not well equipped for maybe, let's say, somebody who's in their 80s with some form of cognitive impairment or physical impairments where they really mobility issues. So the whole spirit of this center is to catch families early before abuse occurs in the first place by providing the caregiver a lot of support. The person at risk, maybe they're extremely socially isolated, and just really bringing those services to that family unit so that they can thrive in their community. And I'll talk just a little bit more about it. We recently have leased this closed 16-bed assisted living facility to house the Elder Justice Center. It's located in the center part of the state, which is great, and that's in the city of Montevallo. So we leased it effective November 1, and to really bring primarily for the adult respite center and the adult daycare. And it's a fact, we work a lot with UAB, different professionals there, and Dr. Carol Pickering made a statement that was so profound, and she had said to the group of us, there's been no evidence anywhere that an adult was mistreated on the day that they went to an adult daycare center or a respite center. And so we are modeling Caring Days, which is out of Tuscaloosa. They are the only one in Alabama that really provides Monday through Friday during the day care from diagnosis to death. So example, now you have to quit your job because your mom financially cannot hire a sitter or bring somebody in the home. So you as the daughter need to, you need to quit your job so you can care for mom 24/7. This respite center will really help you as the caregiver to continue to work where you can drop mom off from, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. So we have every anticipation to start that by next summer. And so we know that this is a huge undertaking, but we know that the need is so great and it really does fill those gaps that currently exist, including the shelter. And that need was really raised everywhere we went while we were training our first responders and law enforcement on dementia-friendly training. They continuously said there was nowhere to place an older adult if the caregiver is arrested, or maybe the spouse has to be hospitalized. And so there is nowhere in this area to temporarily house that older adult. So we really saw the need for this, and this building we think is just perfect. So we're very excited to be actually have a brick and mortar building to start working on those services. So just to kind of show you, we're doing a lot of grant writing. We're developing a lot of partnerships. We are launching a capital fundraising campaign starting yesterday. And so as you can see, we have every anticipation to open the shelter by 2023. So the ultimate outcome really for the center is going to be a trusted resource that seeks to improve long-term health, social and functional status, enhance autonomy and independence, and mitigate the risks of recurrent abuse so older individuals can remain safe and independently in their local communities. Kind of that old saying, age in place. And we do want to, before I turn it over to Steve and introduce him, we do want to invite all of you to the open house for the center. And it will be anytime you can drop in. It's on Giving Tuesday on November 30th. You can drop in anytime from 11 to 2, and we'll give you a tour of the building. So I wanted to just say I've had the great blessing to work with Steve for, I guess, since the Elder Justice, the statewide alliance or the council back in 2010. And Steve is retired from Montgomery Police Department. And he is a staunch champion, really, of domestic violence and abuse in later life. And he does a lot of local, state, and national trainings. And so we just recently brought him on board to help us with our new Elder Justice Initiative as a consultant. And so it's just, if you haven't heard Steve speak, yeah, he just speaks from his heart, and he's so knowledgeable. And so we are very glad to have Steve, to have us join this morning. So I'm going to be quiet and just turn the mic over to you.
Thank you, Robin. Good morning to everyone, and thank you for being online and letting us share this information. And I'm so proud to be a part of the elder justice advocacy, and I think this is one of those exciting movements that's going to take place in this state. It's going to be one of those times that we look back and say, I remember when things changed from single service delivery to multiple, all under one roof. And it's 40 years in law enforcement. I was taught a way to hunker down and be in a silo and not share information with other agencies, and our way was the best way. And then I had a few people that I came in contact with start to open my eyes, and I started to listen and think outside the box and say, you know what, if we can share information, if we can work in a collaborative manner, then we can get a whole lot more accomplished. And that's what I found to be the best way, and to move away from working in silos, but to build bridges and interact with other stakeholders in a collaborative manner, and doing exactly what we're doing today and sharing information. And that's how we come up with solutions, and not just keep meeting and talking, but actually coming up with a solution. And that's why I'm so proud to be a part of this. I need to pay my respects before I go any further to Sue Ash with State DHR. She's retired now, and bless her heart. Sue pulled me into this movement, and Elsie, who's a caseworker with DHR working elder abuse cases, they tried their best to train me, but I was an old dumb cop. And so they had to send me off to get some specialized training. And that's what I did. I went to San Diego, California, and in Louisiana, and got some specialized training in elder abuse, and then came back and started to work cases involving elder abuse and neglect and exploitation. As I said, I was a 40-year street professor I had a PhD in crookology, but I had very little training in elder abuse. And back in the day, most law enforcement agencies didn't have anyone that had any type of expertise or training of working in those type cases. So a lot of times we shied away from them. We just moved away from them and would try to pawn them off on somebody else, the DA's office. So as things started to change within our department, we created a domestic violence unit, or a family violence unit, some agencies call it. The chief came to me and said, well, we've assigned personnel to you. You've got these investigators. Can you take on these elder abuse cases? And at that time, I really wasn't sure what our capability was and what the laws were. So I agreed to it. But what I found was that our hands were tied in a lot of cases, and that we were totally dependent on DHR to open a case before we could take action. And then that case was usually a present case to a grand jury. And then usually law enforcement, in a lot of cases, would get brought in midway or toward the tail end of an investigation. Statements had been contaminated. A lot of the evidence had been lost. So we needed to change the way we did things. And that's when I got specialized training in elder abuse and brought that back and shared it with our department. And then we started training our investigators on how to respond. The financial exploitation cases are really, they're tough cases. They've got a lot of dynamics, and you've got to have a lot of different agencies working together on those. One of the big problems with elder abuse and collecting of evidence is identifying the evidence. And as Robin said, some of it's intentional, some of it's an assault. But we had to get trained, and that's what we did. One of the first cases that I worked, I was called to Baptist South. Baptist caseworker, geriatric caseworker, and a DHR worker met me there. And they took me in behind the curtain, and there was an 80-year-old female there, and she had blunt force trauma injuries to her face. She had bilateral wraparound bruising to her arms, and she had dried blood coming out of her nose. And they explained to me her injuries, and her son, who was the caretaker, had brought her in, and he was explaining the injuries away as slip and fall. And he said that she slipped and fell a lot, and this was an ongoing thing, and you could see 3 to 5 day bruising on her body. As I went in to talk to her to try to get a statement from her to find out what happened, because DHR and the Baptist South caseworker didn't believe it was slip and fall. And as I started to talk to her, she was turned sideways, and she rolled over when I called her name. And I never will forget the look that she had on her face. It was that look of being so vulnerable, of not having a friend in the world, and wanting simply to someone to care. She reached her good hand up to me and extended it to me. And I never will forget those words that day. Can you help me? Can you help me? The doctor explained that she had 4 broken fingers. Her son advised that she had fallen, and that's how those injuries occurred. But after we separated, and he was hovering over her, he was so attentive to every word she was saying. But after we separated him and got her towards X-ray, got her away from the abuser, she divulged that he kept her locked in a room. And when she tried to get out, he slammed the door on her hand and broke 4 of her fingers. I told her that day, I said, "You're not alone. We're going to get through this together, and I'm here to help you." And I could see a smile come across her face. She knew that she had found someone that understood her crime. And that's why it's so important to train everyone, whether it's a nurse, whether it's a social worker, whether it's a law enforcement officer or a magistrate or a judge, or even explain this to a jury. Everyone that comes in contact with an elder abuse victim needs to be trained properly. I was called by DHR to a residence in Montgomery, and there was a caretaker there, and there was a man in his 90s in a bed, and he had what are called raccoon eyes. It appeared that someone had hit him in the face, and that was my first thought. And the caretaker explained, no, no one's hit him, that he has an oxygen mask on his face, and he simply takes the mask and pulls it back, and he gets fidgety, and he tries to move around, and he pulls the oxygen mask back and forth, and it's got an elastic band on it, and he injures himself. But looking at that from an untrained person, you could say, well, this person is being abused. Those are the kind of things that stakeholders, individuals that come in contact with the elderly have to be mindful of. See, training is so critical, and that's one of the components of the Elder Justice Center is training. There are 4 components of it, and as Robin showed the house, I like to explain a collaborative project as a house. And a house has many rooms in it. But a house has 4 corners, a foundation. It has 4 corners to support that house. And the Elder Justice Advocacy Center has those 4 corners. It has elder services. It has public education and outreach. It has professional training to train stakeholders that come in contact. And we all think that we're trained, we've seen it all. And it serves as a resource center to get out information to agencies and individuals that come in contact. My wife's a nurse practitioner at the Central Alabama Healthcare System, VA Health System here in Montgomery. And she called me at work one day and she said, "Steve, I've got this elderly vet," and she said, "He's here with his caretaker and he's got a service dog." And she said, "There's something not right." She said, "He appears to have some type of bruising to his face." She said, "The bruises on his arm could be contact, he may be on Coumadin, maybe on a blood thinner," but she said he has bruising to his face. And she said, every time the caretaker goes towards his dog, the dog starts growling. She said, "There's just something not right." She's a nurse practitioner. She works with vets every day. She said, what do you think we ought to do?" She said, "Could you do a welfare check? Could you have somebody go by and check his residence after he leaves?" I said, "Well, sure." It didn't cost any more. Wasn't any.
Yeah, when we left off, I was sharing with you about my wife identifying the veteran, and we were doing a welfare check, and patrol unit went by and knocked on the door, and they met a very abrasive individual that didn't want to give them information, didn't want to let them in the house and check on that veteran. And so we called my wife was able to locate a family member, and we were able to get the family member there to the residence and went in with them legally. And what we found was that the individual had been secured by a rope to the wheelchair where it couldn't move. And the dog was out in the backyard. His service dog, worker dog, was out in the backyard. And all of his personal possessions had been taken from him. And during the course of the investigation, that we found that she had taken over his financial affairs and was exploiting him financially. Make a long story short is this wouldn't have been found out if one person hadn't taken the time to say something's going on, something's not right. I don't feel good about this. It doesn't make any difference who does that, as long as someone. And we're in a state where we have a very permissive reporting, and that you can report to DHR. And these cases are out there. And with this individual, you know, my wife came home crying one day, and she said, he passed, and now they don't know what to do with his worker dog. And and she said, I just wonder how long that went on before I identified it. And he would come into the VA on a regular basis. And that's why training is so critical, that everyone, and you don't have to be an expert. And it's just like if you smell smoke in your neighborhood, you're going to call the fire department. And if you suspect elder abuse, then report it. Call DHR, call a law enforcement agency. There's just no reason now not to report it if you suspect it. Law enforcement and other stakeholders are going to have to be trained properly to identify these cases. Traditionally, law enforcement and other stakeholders, they investigated crimes against a younger population. But now the crimes are being targeted against the elderly. And now with the internet predators and with seniors getting on Facebook, they're exposed to predators that are out there. And this is why the Center for Elder Justice is a place where we can all be trained on how to serve that aging population. And according to the National Center on Elder Abuse, 1 in 2 million Americans 65 and older have been abused, exploited, or otherwise mistreated by their caretaker or by someone they look for protection. And when I do trainings, I call them boomerang brats. In a lot of cases, these are children or grandchildren that have ejected from the nest and have come back home now to victimize their aging parent or grandparents, exploit them of their funds, their wealth, their monies, their property, their assets that they've acquired all their lives. A lot of them are drug dependent. Elder abuse has no boundaries, and it crosses all racial, social, class, gender, and geographical lines. And for each elder abuse case of neglect and exploitation or self-neglect that's reported, what we know is 5 or more go unreported. As Robin said, she was a caretaker. I'm a caretaker. my mother-in-law, she's one of the last people I talked to at night, and she was one of the first people I talked to in the morning. She doesn't view me as a son-in-law anymore. She's 91. She views me as her caretaker. And we have a great relationship, but she has dementia, and she views me as that person that she needs a friend. She needs someone to share her stories of her life with. She needs someone that's not going to get upset, not get angry because she forgot what she told me 5 minutes ago, and she tells me the same thing again. She needs someone that she can trust that's going to make sure that she doesn't put the wrong PIN number in for her bank account. And there's so many individuals out there just like that. They need someone, they need a friend. And that's why I'm so passionate about being involved in this project. It's one of those projects that, you know, we meet, we come together and we talk about, and that's all we end up doing. But this is a great project, and we can all feel good about it. I want to be on the cutting edge. I want to be a part of a movement, a defining moment in this state that's going to make a difference through intervention and prevention. We know elder abuse is out there. The state of Alabama now has identified it as a crime. There's simply no reason that we can't all work together to provide safety, to provide services for the elderly. I think back as a law enforcement officer responding to homes, writing death reports, being involved in death investigations involving what were sometimes ruled as natural deaths. I think back now and I wonder how many of those, just because they were elderly, were written off as natural deaths. And was there emotional abuse or financial abuse or self-neglect or medication abuse or even sexual abuse going on prior to their deaths? There needs to be a network throughout this state. There needs to be an elder justice center, in my opinion, each one of the 67 counties. They need to be able to identify people with Alzheimer's disease or related dementia. And they're at greater risk now of being financially exploited because of the internet schemes that are preying on the elderly. There need to be resources in every community in this state that are networked together, not by silos, but by bridges that are being built across this state in a collaborative manner. If you think about, you go to a restaurant, you order a meal. Well, we don't have that, but the restaurant across the street has it. Well, we don't have this on the menu today, but the restaurant down the street has it. We don't have your favorite dessert, but they have it uptown. you're probably not going to go back to that restaurant. See, that's what we've done for so long in serving victims. We send them here, there, and everywhere to get different services. And if you're an aging person, you've got limited resources, and you can't drive, and you're dependent on somebody to take you, then that journey gets too long. So that's why we need to create a super Walmart, if you will. A super Walmart for elderly victims. So they can go to one place and get connected to services and resources. And when they walk in the door, they see it on people's faces. They know they don't have to explain their abuse. They don't have to explain their crime. That you understand. And in so many cases, that's all they want to do is tell their story. Is tell how bad is. I just want to thank Robin, and I want to thank Carolyn. I want to thank everybody that's involved in this project to give me an opportunity to be involved in. It is truly one of those projects that make you feel good about being involved in. You know, it's easy to go to a meeting and do a greet and meet once a month and talk. But to get involved in a project like this, where people that have passion and commitment want to be involved in it, and that's why I'm so excited about this project. You know, where are we going to go with the future direction of this? We know it's a growing issue. We must continue to create awareness, and we must collaborate on a community-driven sustainability. We need to build a work culture in assisting the elderly upon guiding principles. First thing, it needs to be safety focused. Safety, safety, safety. That's the number one thing we've got to provide the elderly. They've got to feel safe. And as an elderly husband and wife told me one day when I was taking their statement, they said, you know, we can't even remote control and change the TV channel in our home without his girlfriend screaming and hollering. It has to be safety focused. It has to be victim centered. Everything that we do toward this project, toward assisting the elderly, needs to be victim centered. It's not about my job. It's not about our turf. It's not about where we work. It's about being victim centered. It's about being culturally competent, making sure that we're diverse and cover all of the people in the community that we come in contact with. As I said earlier, it's about intervention and prevention. See, if I can't read the spiral outward bands of the storm forming in the Gulf to know that there's a hurricane coming, then how can I help? I've got to take the blinders off. It's my job. It's my job. It's not their job. It's my job. It has to be survivor driven. Survivors of elder abuse that have gone through the storm, that have passed through the fire, we need to let them be voices. There needs to be a voice for them to tell their story, to tell it so we all understand from their perspective the services that they need. It needs to be victim-centered and victim-driven. this movement needs to be relationship based. Relationships, building relationships with other stakeholders that do the same job every day. And it needs to be prevention oriented to prevent the next elder abuse case. And in whatever we do towards working with the elderly in this project, we need to be kind-hearted. We need to understand that this is someone looking in the mirror saying, what happened? They're still young at heart. We need to be empowered. We need to empower each other and work in a collaborative manner. And most important, we need to hold people accountable. Hold people accountable from committing crimes against the elderly. And in so many cases, this person, this individual is a family member. And it is so difficult to get that victim to take action against that family member. That's why we have to step in. That's why we have to be the protector. This can be a very successful project. And we need to be all committed to work towards the shared vision and mission of bringing services to the elderly. We need to create a culture that promote collaboration of working together. We need to identify what hasn't worked in the past and move away from that. But we need to work in a collaborative manner towards awareness, motivate each other, participate, and then reflect on what we've accomplished. In closing, I would just like to say what President Kennedy said in 1963. Let no one be discouraged by the belief that there is nothing one person can do against the enormous array of the world's ills, misery and ignorance, injustice and violence. Few will have the greatness to bend history itself, but each of us can work to change a small portion of events. And in the total of those acts will be written the history of this generation. I hope what will be written is that we have come together to make a difference in Shelby County and across this state on preventing elder abuse. Thank you for your time. Thank you for what you do. And let us all work together to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, so much. I just can't express enough every time I hear Steve speak because it's so heart-driven. One thing that he's taught me for the last several years is, and I hear him teach first responders, law enforcement, this very same thing. If you think you've done enough to protect this generation or an individual that you come across and you lay your head down at night and you think, I did a good job with that. He always says, take the next step, do one more thing, because there's always one more thing we can do for our older adults that will really have a significant impact. Okay, well, I really absolutely encourage, we have a lot of great partners involved with us, and that's why Steve really stressed the importance of bringing people together, and that's really the true spirit of each of the county-wide alliances. Originally, we thought, let's just have one big, large network across our 5-county area and then include Jefferson. But really, because of the nature of the crimes and the jurisdictional boundaries, we really, and we're talking with our local law enforcement and sheriff's offices, we really believe that each alliance should be its own county. So I would encourage you to get involved. You can, if you want to be part of the alliance that's started in September for Shelby County, shoot me an email and I will add you to that email list. And I did want to just, just send prayers and just send good vibes for this big undertaking that we are embarking upon. And so we really are kind of at the cutting edge of this. And I was just going to pull up and just a reminder to please come out and show support and take a tour of the open house event. That is on Giving Tuesday. I will say that there's a brand new website we just put out, and it's elderjusticeal.org. You'll be seeing a lot of TV commercials. We're doing a lot of advertising to raise awareness of elder justice in our communities, but also to provide some financial support, because it's gonna, we have to, we've applied, we've had a lot of great support. And I will say that the Holy Family Foundation, none of this would have been possible without a grant that we received in April from that family foundation. And then also the Daniel Foundation, we just received $45,000 grant to use towards the purchase or the lease of the building. We have quite a couple key grants applications out there, and we should hear back by December. But I just can't say enough that they saw our vision and really provided the financial means that we needed to get all of our publications together. And so I want to thank our Shelby County coroner. She's a wonderful partner. She's very passionate about this. And we had a cleaning party on Saturday, and she and Steve and Jennifer and several of us were out there making the building look spiffy. And it really is a beautiful facility. And I want to thank the Knowles family. For the Knollwood Assisted Living Facility, the family has been working with us since January towards this building, and none of this would be possible without their grace and their real true support and helping us every step along the way. So those are just some individuals that we want to thank.